Welcome back, everybody, to the first episode of Gears and Glory for the 2025 season. You've just been listening to a snippet of the Australian national anthem.
Yeah, you have.
So, I don't
to
know.
Celebrate.
We're trying something. We'll see if it works. If you hate it, let us know. If you love it, let us know. If you feel indifferent to it, let us know. And if you have some sort of secret fourth feeling, also tell us.
Let us know.
Doesn't even have to be about... If you have... Just talk... We'll listen.
Talk to us.
If you want to talk to us. So... All right. Well, welcome to the first episode of 2025 season. Yay. What a race. This episode, we're planning to chat about the rookie performances, Ferrari.
Whatever happened there.
The note we've got is like 6 question marks, bolded, italicized, and underlined, because what was going on? There was a lot. There's a lot to discuss.
There's a lot of confusion.
We'll chat about McLaren. We'll chat about the currently crazy championship standings for drivers' championships and constructors' championships.
Because what is that?
Yeah, and then at the end, we'll hit our Grand Prix predictions for China, which is now coming up. We are recording in, Thursday for me, Friday in Australia, and
pre-practice.
Everything is beginning imminently. Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. I did want to start with, the news came out today. It's March 20th in the U.S. of Eddie Jordan's passing. He was 76. I believe he was having cancer treatments. Rest in peace. What an icon for the Formula One community as a driver, as a team owner, as a pundit for so many different channels. So wanted to recognize that. The news came out, very devastating. And I hope very much that, in peace, he is, in fact, resting. So,
yes. And thoughts and prayers to his family.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Well,
I did want to mention also, Liv is recovering from having gone to the Melbourne Grand Prix. We all saw how rainy it was.
Yeah. Not only was it rainy, it was torrential winds as well. So I think it was like 14 degrees and it was bucketing down and it was windy. So she sent us a voice message this morning. She has barely any voice. Soph recommended a tea called Throat Coat. Hope it helps.
Echinacea, baby. What is this podcast even about anymore?
I don't know. Anyway. Liv, you are with us in spirit. We've got your Chinese GP predictions and we'll still share her thoughts because, we're all kind of on the same wavelength altogether.
Yeah.
But something to note is that she has now turned into a George Russell stan since the Melbourne GP because she got her hat signed by him. So now she's an avid George Russell lover. So with that's a new one for the pod. I don't think we have a George Russell lover in the trio.
No, I don't think so. And I have some. I think I'm evolving from last season on certain opinions.
Okay.
On certain drivers, so we'll see.
Get prepared.
Let's start with how the weekend starts. So let's hit free practice 1. I watched a lot of all of the sessions. Actually, the only one I don't think I was able to really watch all the way was the actual race because I had to catch a flight. But I remember being absolutely shocked that the Williams was doing as well as it was doing because I remember in my solo episode I talked about testing about how the Williams was like performing well. And then I'm in this place where I'm like, obviously, we've all seen me wear my Williams hoodie. We've all seen that I'm not beating the Williams fan allegations. And yet again, I'm just putting more evidence towards the fact that maybe I am a Williams fan. Maybe that's
I think you are.
I think I am.
Well, I mean, they had Logan and now they have Carlos. So they kind of have like your two partial to kind of home drivers.
But the thing is, I can't tell if the car is suddenly incredibly better or if Alex Albon has... Because, okay, let's not forget Alex Albon drove for Red Bull alongside Max. Like, let's not forget that. It's not necessarily his fault that he went to Williams prior to their downfall because they were... With the whole Claire Williams thing, like, it was a whole thing, right? There was so much going on. And then the car was suffering and he had teammates who weren't necessarily maybe pushing him. But what happened over the break to cause such an insane difference? And yes, we have one race. Yes, we have testing. Like, it's not really much to go off of. It was a wet race too. It's not like we were at a purpose-built track in good weather with like high track temperatures that we're used to. Like, it's cold, it's wet. He's an experienced driver, so he like has experience doing these things compared to the rookies, which we'll get to. Yeah. But like, what I just remember being shocked. I was like, I either Alex Albon decided to start driving better, or the car is really leagues ahead of where it was last season.
Yeah. I feel like
I
it's
don't
kind
know
of
which
a
one it
mix
is,
of
though.
like three things. Like, because, and we'll get to it when we recap the race, but I think Carlos had a big impact on Williams' performance, or Alex's performance over the race. But I mean, even before the race, both of them were putting the Williams quite high. In the practice sessions and qualifying. I mean, I think they qualified pretty well. Albon qualified P6. So I think that, look,
Yeah.
a Williams comeback era.
Maybe. Yeah. And like for being a Ferrari fan, I wear my Williams sweater a lot. So yeah.
Yeah.
Wanted to touch on that. It was very exciting to hear Laura Muller on the radio for Esteban Ocon. I just like loved that. It was just
Yeah.
nice. It was just
Yeah.
cool.
It was like a warm feeling. It was like,
Yes.
oh, go Queen.
Yes. Yeah. No, it was very, very exciting.
Queen and her FP
I just
bestie.
wanted to call that out.
Yeah, no, I think
But
that's
yeah.
a really good shout, and hopefully it will be something more common in the next couple of years. And unfortunately, FP1 was not the best session for Ollie. Huge crash.
Huge. That
especially
has
in
to
the
be
first session.
Yeah, has to be devastating because obviously it's your first real run as an F1 driver, right? So that's a blanket over everything. And then the fact that it's Haas, and Haas has more money than they had before, but they're still not top team. They're still a midfield team. To sustain so much damage, both for Haas as a team's ego bringing on a rookie, and then Ollie's ego and mental environment, I guess, even as he's going into this first stint to like start on that.
Yeah.
Tough.
I think they're kind of starting on the back foot as well, because I don't know completely what repairs had to be done to his car, but I would assume that it would be, quite a lot of repairs, and they obviously only have a certain amount of like batteries and power units and things that they can replace. So if they did replace any of that, they are already on the back foot for the season, which is that grid penalties will apply later on.
100%. And we're not far enough in the season where they've got all of the extra parts that they then manufacture for the other races that are like purpose built for those races. They haven't got any of those extra bits because they're probably working on them right now.
And going from one street track to another, like they're probably using a similar setup, So yeah, I mean they did well to repair the car and get it back on track for the race.
FP3.
FP3 and then the race. But yeah.
Unlucky. Well, especially with the race we had. But yeah, let's get these practice sessions out of the way, recaps out of the way. FP2 was not super eventful. Ollie was out for damage. He was back in FP3, and then Charles Leclerc was top of the table for FP2, which I wrote down because I love Charles Leclerc. But nothing super eventful for FP2. I don't know if there's anything you want to comment on.
No, I don't think so. I did not watch much of the practice sessions because I was driving home from Melbourne on the Friday when practice was on, so I did miss it.
They were dry. Like it was never going, especially because it was going to be a wet race. Like, it was never going to be the same.
No.
But we got a teaser of maybe what the race was going to look like in FP3. Oscar was P1 at the end of it. Ollie goes off again for it, which has really got to get in his head. And then obviously in the race, we see different performances. And then Liam actually had power unit issues during this session too, which, well, I don't know. Jury's out on Liam Lawson. I love Liam Lawson as an individual, as a athlete and competitor. I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about him, I think. Because I appreciate that he's got like bite and he's like kind of vicious, but also I think there's a way to do that without pushing the envelope too much. And I don't know if he's pushing the envelope too much for me yet. I like don't know what my threshold is for him.
Yeah, that's fair. Liam is in like this gray area for a lot of people.
And last season he just like kept crashing with the like Spanish language Hispanic drivers. And I was just like, don't crash into somebody else, please. Or like Great. Anybody who's watching this, Apple, this one's for
Apple,
you.
please fix your
Um,
effects setup. Oh my goodness.
there's one that my boss, lasers.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, those are gonna get in the rotation.
yeah. But anyway,
Qualifying.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the Ferraris, we can start with there. Poor performance,
Well,
personally.
because it was so tough. I think it was a timing thing, honestly, because I was watching it and they had qualified in like the top 5 or so. And then it was just like all of these teams that I don't think they were expecting were
No.
bumping them down and bumping them down. It was Williams and V-Carb that bumped
Yeah.
them out of the way.
Yeah. It was unexpected because once they did do their final lap and they got their final times, I was like, oh great, we're gonna have a nice kind of
Yes. You can
high-ish
still fight for
start, cool.
podium.
And then I
Yeah.
was very surprised when Alex came in, and I was like, oh, and like the V carb, and I was like,
Yeah. Which,
yeah,
like,
Yuki
Yuki
P5.
is on my, he's on my fantasy team. I believe in the Yuki effect. I do. But, like, then again, it's back to my thing about Williams. I'm like, is the car randomly better, or is Alex just
Yeah,
deciding to drive better all of a sudden?
yeah. I reckon
So I don't know what to, I don't know.
it's a mix. I
It
reckon because
has to be.
I can't remember where they finished last year in the constructors, but did they finish above what they did the year before? Because they dipped into the 25 budget to make up for all of the
All the
repairs that
crashes.
Logan and Franco kind of accumulated.
So they in 2023, Williams finished 7th, and then in 2024 they finished 9th. So I don't know.
Interesting. I reckon Carlos has helped a lot in the
Is
short
it
time.
James Vowles too?
Maybe.
Is it? As Jack Whitehall calls him, Jimmy V.
Look, I mean, maybe. I feel
Maybe.
like Carlos maybe gave some perspective from coming from a higher performing car, whereas Alex has been there so long. I guess his driving, it would make sense if it's adapted to what the car can do, whereas Carlos is like, I drive like this and the car responds this way, so then they try and maybe work backwards from there.
That's got to be so
how,
interesting.
yeah, I just don't know how much input Carlos would have had with like the development of anything other than like the aero package, because you can't really start working on it until your contract starts.
Exactly.
And so he's only technically been employed with Williams for like 2 months. So I'll be interested to see what comes out of this as the season progresses.
Well, and then, so we touch on that Yuki qualified P5, Alex Albon qualified P6. So huge for those teams. Honestly, very exciting. I'm glad. I mean, because that's the whole thing, is like, that was the whole dialogue last season with silly season of like, is Yuki going to get the Red Bull spot? But he's not really a Honda driver anymore, and Red Bull is still with Honda, and Helmut doesn't like Yuki. And well, we can talk about Helmut's commentary this weekend.
I don't think that's good to put publicly.
But we also have Isaac Hadjar, who qualified the best out of all the rookies at P11.
Yeah.
Which was just outside the points in a V-carb as a rookie.
Yeah. When you're ahead of Kimi in the Mercedes. I mean, obviously the race had different conditions, which then brought out a different finishing order. But in dry conditions, all of the rookies seem quite level playing despite the difference in the cars.
Yeah, and what's been actually really neat is I was listening to a clip of an interview today from blonde German. Oh my god, this is embarrassing.
Nico
Hülkenberg. Yes. Oh my god, sorry. I could see his face perfectly in my head in the steak green and everything, and I was just like, on the tip of my tongue. He is like, I have to bring my A game to keep up with Bortoletto, which is such a cool thing to hear from a guy who's so seasoned.
Yeah. And also I've been seeing, I mean, Liv also shared this to her story, but Bortoletto is like besties with Alonso. And he has been since like
his manager.
F2.
He's his manager. Yeah.
Manager?
Yeah.
I did not know this.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I think.
Wait, I did not know this.
I think. Yeah, I don't know how I know that. I'm pretty sure he's his manager.
1 second.
Gabriel Bortoleto, manager. Google.
Yeah. Well, he's under Alonso's management company, A14 Management.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're like,
Mark Webber
but
2.0.
yeah.
Wow. Mark Webber, Oscar 2.0. Okay. Cute. Well,
That'll be interesting to track. I think
cool.
Gabriel Bortoleto is very promising as a rookie, I think.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what he does. Even in the stake. Because then, well, whatever. We'll get to Audi and then Cadillac too. Oh my god, it's gonna be 2026 is gonna be
Changing
ready to seat belt.
regulations. Yeah. I think it's gonna be spicy. But for now, let's get on to the actual race because we had drama before the race even started. Now, this obviously
Devastating.
Hang on, wait, before we get into Isaac.
Oh my god.
This wasn't televised internationally because they're the Australian series, but the feeder series, pretty much all of the feeder series sessions got cancelled the morning of the race. So not only was the track like soaking wet, but they actually didn't have like any rubber on the track at all.
That's why it was so oily.
Yeah. So they cancelled. I think FP3 ran like very early. F3 ran or F2 ran very early in the morning, and then supercars got cancelled. And then F3 I think got cancelled, and then F2 went out and did like a couple laps on the safety car, came back in, and like it kept getting delayed, and then they never ended up racing. So there was actually like no rubber or anything on the track to even like lay it down before F1 went through, which is very different to how it was in the other sessions earlier in the week because they had all of the feeder series on before them.
Yeah.
So that I think contributed to some of the track conditions as well, being so slippery. And then also that it was like general road paint and not
exactly
FIA
that
paint.
was so interesting that they kept bringing it up.
Yeah, is why I think we saw a lot of rookies, RIP Isaac, in the wall.
Well, and even experienced drivers, because Lando and Oscar both went off at one point. Fernando, who I always bet on
Charles spun.
Yeah.
I think the only one that didn't really like mess up at all was I think Max. But like we know how Max is in the rain. Look at Brazil.
Yeah.
He went up the whole grid. Anyway.
Yeah, this race gave Brazil 2024 a run for its money in terms of it being a wet race, just filled with just like so much. How many safety cars did we have? Maybe not as many as Brazil, but at least 3.
Yeah, well, I'm actually surprised they didn't red flag it at all. Like, I'm surprised the crashes that we did have were not the magnitude which were at Brazil. Hence, I mean, i.e. Franco. But I don't think that Brazil... Yeah, anyway. So, Isaac out on the formation lap. Very devastating. Sad. Very devastating. But can we talk about Sir Anthony Hamilton?
Yes.
Because I had tears in my eyes watching the broadcast.
What a gentleman. I think that was the classiest, and I know I'm not the first person to say it, but I think that was the classiest thing, the most generous thing that he could have done in that moment, especially with the fact that Isaac idolizes Lewis so much. Like, that was the driver he followed. That was the driver he wanted to grow up to be like. Now he gets to race with him, and
he's being comforted by his dad. I mean, Lewis did also give a statement in the media. I actually don't know if it was before or after Isaac's race. I think it might have actually been after Ollie's crash. But Lewis said at any point during the weekend, he was in the media pen and he was talking to the journalists and they were asking about the rookies and pressure of the media and things like that. And Lewis said that the rookies already have so much pressure on them to perform from the fans and the teams and blah, blah, blah. And that he doesn't think it's fair that the media should put this pressure on them as well and that they should focus on the experienced drivers that can handle it. And I just thought that was really...
that's a thoughtful thing to say.
Yeah, it is. And...
well, and it seemed like everybody everybody who was like talking about it, like even I can't remember who was commentating it on the stream I was watching, but they were saying like the marshal should get him out of camera view, like the marshal should try to find him some privacy or something, which like I mean you're just like I'm sure in that position you're just trying to be like somebody's got to wave the yellow flag, somebody's got to call the recovery truck, somebody's got to handle the driver and get them back to their hospitality location, trailer, whatever. And you've also got Isaac Hadjar absolutely devastated in front of you.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that that's a tough thing to do, but I did think it was a really nice gesture for even the commentators to be like, that's a tough one. You know, like, cut him some slack, get him off the screen.
Yeah. And obviously there have been other drivers that crashed out on the formation lap. You know, Charles, it happened with Charles in France in 2022. And I think Charles has actually had a DNS twice in the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, and even in Monaco at his home race. No?
Yeah.
A couple years
I think
ago.
Lance has had it as well. I mean, that's probably likely. You know, Lewis has surely had it in his career. Like, it's something that just happens.
Tough.
But
it's tough. And it's hard because, like, I know with, like, when Charles was out in formation lap, I believe in Monaco, it was a car issue.
Yes.
Right? Which, like, that's devastating for its own reason because it's like, I can do it. It's just the materials I have with me are not allowing me to. But when it's in the rain and you've never driven in this car, in this rain, in this track, in the situation that you're in this perfectly singular, unique situation.
Yeah.
And then it's like not to say that like Isaac Hadjar is to blame, but like it was such a difficult situation that he was put into that then he had to handle. And like you can only offer your best. And it was such a treat. Like we saw Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz also go off.
Yeah.
Lando and Oscar also ended up, I mean, we'll talk about it, but like Lando ended up in the gravel trap for a little while, spinning through.
Yeah. I think Nico even had a moment where he like kind of lost control of the rear and then he like splashed up water. Like he went to the puddle.
So it was just, I was just absolutely devastated. I was so gutted for Isaac in particular to be the first one to go in formation lap. That's really tough. That's really tough. I think it was more unlucky than anything else because I do think he's talented.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. But what was I going to say? I mean, Isaac said it best. Like, the track took a lot of drivers that day, and he was just the first one.
Yeah.
And that
I hope that makes him feel a little better. You know?
Yeah.
And some of the other drivers that went off.
I have a strong feeling that a lot of the experienced drivers would have spoken to him, particularly Lewis. And I think Alonso would have said something as well after he crashed. I think he would have sat with the other rookies that had also crashed at that point and comforted them and said, rookies and me. All us rookies.
And I mean, I know we don't love Helmut Marko on this pod, but I do want to comment on like, who cares how you express your reaction to something? If his performance is good after this, it's race one. Like it was a wet race.
Exactly.
In a situation that was, again, like I just like, it's so totally unique. Like he needs time. He's a rookie. I think he's a kid too.
Also, it shows that he cares. It shows that he has a lot of passion for what he's doing because he's disappointed in himself. If he just went to the media pen and was like, "Nah, I crashed. Who cares? I'll be back out next week." Like, I would be more concerned about that.
Yeah, and like just because he's having this feeling about that now, and maybe whatever. I don't want to speculate on what he might have been feeling. I'm sure a lot. But that doesn't mean he's not going to turn it around and want to do better.
No,
you know.
Exactly.
And I think you should be able to express yourself. I think crying is normal, and I think men should cry more.
Yeah.
Cry about it. Just kidding.
Have a sook. Anyway.
But I'm just saying, I don't think I also, isn't he French? Not to make it like French people are emotional, but like I don't know. I think there's different perspectives on masculinity and the relationship with emotions and expressing those emotions in certain ways. That I think crying is super healthy in that situation. And totally makes sense. Yeah. I think he needs to do whatever he needs to do so that he can take that and have that become part of his lived experience or whatever.
Yeah.
But I did want to comment on that Helmut Marko can kind of shut his trap a little bit about those comments.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone on my TikTok called him a shriveled up raisin. And, I've been thinking about that ever since. I think I pinned it to the top comments because it made me giggle so much.
That's really funny.
Yeah. Anyway, following Isaac, we obviously had heaps of crashes. We had Do and Out next, I believe. And I mean, there's a note in here from Sof that her fantasy team is suffering.
Well, okay, because I had traded. Here's the thing. I traded out. Okay, listen, because I posted it on the Gears and Glory story. So the team that I posted, I regret to inform you all, is not the team I've moved forward with. I did trade Yuki for Lance, but then Lance did really good.
Yeah.
And I have Ollie as my rookie. He's like my token rookie on my team. Well, sorry, Ollie, you had a really bad weekend. And I need you to perform better, actually. This is a direct message.
It's
Ollie
all about
if you're out there.
I mean, he might watch it. All these rookies are chronically online. Maybe they'll all see this. Anyway.
Ollie, please. Ollie, my fantasy team. Ollie.
Ollie, we're rooting for you, please.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but speaking of rookies, Kimi Antonelli. Oh my god.
I think I'm gonna have to eat my words of what I've been skeptical because he's 12 years old. I know he's 17. He's
18 now. He's 18 now. I think he turned 18 in November or something.
That's a child.
Yeah.
That's a child. He can't even legally drink in the United States. But all of my, I will eat my words and I will not make a peep about it because I was proven wrong. And I know he's a wet weather specialist and I know this is just race one, but respect. What a drive.
Yeah.
What a drive.
He was controlling that car, obviously better than a lot of the experienced drivers because he finished up so high on the grid after starting so low.
That's a lot of progress. That's a Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen move.
Yeah. And yes, the safety car did help keep everyone bunched up, but he still had to make those overtakes in the wet. In
the bits and pieces that weren't going to have any rubber down, that were going to be more wet, that were going to be more greasy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And keep it on the track.
He did an incredible, incredible job. And I was never doubtful of Kimi, but you and Liv were. And I was just like, no, I think he's going to do great. I was hopeful. I was a little bit cautious because I was like, if he proves everyone wrong, that'll suck. But I think Toto put a lot of trust in him, and I think for a reason.
It paid off. Yeah.
I mean, again, race one, we'll see what dry conditions are like.
Grain of salt.
Everyone else is on, a level playing field. Obviously, we had mixed strategies on the weekend as well because of the weather. Some people were on slicks, some were on inters. So, obviously, great start to the season. We'll see what consistency is like, but I think he's going to go far.
I do. I'm very curious to see what that is going to look like. But I did want to comment on there was a video that F1 posted, I think on YouTube, baby, they did an interview with all the rookies. And all of the other rookies are a little bit older than Kimi, and Kimi is just so very much an 18-year-old boy.
He is
so hilarious to me. I'm just like, oh my gosh, let him go outside and run a mile and then come back in and then we can do the interview. And he just needs to he just has all this energy and youthful joie de vivre and just zest for life that I just find, it's just really cute.
Yeah, he is.
He's a little baby.
Well, I mean, Ollie is, I think they're 18 months apart. So I think they're the closest in age. Mm-hmm. But you can still see the difference. But Kimi is very much unmedia trained, young boy.
He's a boy. He's still a boy, I would say.
Yes, I'm sure that
the other ones feel like young men.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you all listening have seen the rookie roundtable snippet where Laura Winter asks all of the rookies who is going to be their tightest battle for the season, and Ollie says Kimi and Kimi says Fernando. And because the online meme is that Fernando is
chronically online rookie, just like the rest of us.
Yes, that's why I'm saying they might see this. And Laura, she was like, no, rookies. And he was like, yeah, Fernando. And she was like, oh! She was gobsmacked. She
was like, let's move on. I think we're confused.
She was like, okay.
Honestly, props to Laura Winter for a million reasons because she's talented and intelligent and driven and accomplished. but for running that round table, like a special award. That
Oh
was
my God.
just
Chaos.
hats off.
She actually had to say to them, like, boys,
Yes.
listen. And
It
at
felt
one
like
point,
mom.
yes,
Yeah.
because at one point, I was watching the Chinese, like, Grand Prix warm up that they posted this morning where they spoke about the track and stuff. And then
Yeah.
automatically after that, it just kept playing. And it
Yeah.
played the rookie roundtable again. And I was working, so it was in the background. And
Yeah.
at one point, I looked up and Jack was, like, flicking through her question cards.
No, he just
And
like took it. And she's
and
like,
she like
no, no,
snapped
no.
his neck.
I know.
Oh, yeah, no. The
So
mental
funny.
strength of Laura handling all of those children. Props to you.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. So, I think it's time we talk about Ferrari.
What if I don't want to?
Well,
what if I want to pretend it never happened?
That's fair.
Yeah,
a lot of
tough
sacks
one.
from
Tough
the
one.
drivers, which is warranted. I think Lewis was trying to be nice. He was trying to be very kind.
Yeah, I think he's pumped up with adrenaline. I think he's used to Bono, and I think he's got Ricky in his ear telling him, K1, use K1. And he's like, please, leave me alone.
Literally, I was genuinely expecting like a Kimi, 2.0 being like, let me do it, like, let me drive.
He was short and he was a little sharp, but he was
And
not
he used manners. Leave me to it, please.
Yes,
like,
yes.
He's respectful, but he's adamant.
Yes, and that's why I think it's interesting where maybe this is something that I just want to learn about is like how much are the engineers allowed to like really tell them what to do? Like how much control do they have? How much is a driver actually ever going to listen?
Maybe we should get an engineer on the pod.
Huh?
Let's get an engineer on the pod.
Let's get an engineer. Ricky?
Ricky?
When I catch you, Ricky? No, but that's so interesting to me of like how much is a driver going to listen, and like someone like Lewis Hamilton, who is a 7-time, 8-time world champion, however many times you subscribe to, being told to do things and like having to learn. And I know Lewis expressed that he was very excited about getting to learn. I shouldn't say having to, about getting to learn, but then having to do that so quickly. And then jump into a wet weather race like that one. Yeah. And then also to have like, it's got to be so hard to like essentially break up with Bono and then just move on to the next and have to build a whole relationship. Lewis Hamilton's also like learning Italian because they just speak Italian at Ferrari. Like makes sense. It's an Italian team, but like a lot of other teams have adopted English as like their universal language. Yeah. But I just think it's fascinating of like the balance between Lewis has the potential to do such great things and Lewis having to learn how. And the engineer's role in helping or maybe even hurting that, depending on how that process is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, in a way, looking at it after a few days after the Grand Prix, I think that it may be actually, because as a Ferrari fans, we're used to this. We're like, oh, this is just standard Ferrari. Like, they're just butchering the strategy and the communication's patchy. I was actually surprised that Brian's communication was this bad this race with Charles, because this was giving Xavi energy.
It was. No, it definitely was. It was tough. It was tough. It was hilarious. There's the one radio where Charles goes, oh, my seat is like full of water. And he responds, he goes, oh, must be the water. And Charles, I believe, responds, put that in the words of wisdom. And like giggles. And Charles Leclerc is great in interviews, perfectly media trained, funny in videos. He is witty and clever when he's going 200 kph around a circuit. Yeah. That's when he's like peak performance. Charles Leclerc is like literally just like you need to have him barreling down a road at 200 kph.
Yeah. Yeah. I was cackling at that.
It was so funny. Well, no, because then what Brian responds something too that's hilarious.
Oh, I don't remember what.
He said something back at the very end or something. That was funny. I can't remember.
If you find it, share it with the group. But I do think that perhaps, because obviously Lewis has a lot of experience to bring to Ferrari, both on the track and off. And I think maybe this was a good thing that it happened so early in the season, like these issues, because I think that Ferrari do really value Lewis's expertise. I think Fred has said that multiple times. So I think that if Lewis can work with the engineers to kind of mold their communication style and their strategy to be a bit more updated and tailored to the driver's needs, I think they might actually grow really well and really strong.
Yes.
But I guess we'll see if that actually happens.
And that's tricky. And that's actually something that Gunther Steiner was saying on his podcast. Not to plug another podcast on our podcast, but the Vank Hours podcast that Gunther Steiner does, that's like his race recap podcast with the Red Flags Pod boys.
Oh, yeah.
He was saying something about how it's so tricky to change a culture coming from the outside, which is, I think, such a valid point. But where I think there's flexibility in that is when you have someone like Fred who has been verbally adamant that he is going to essentially accept outside feedback and stuff like that. And balancing what has worked with, I think that if you're open-minded about feedback from somebody who's new, because they are seeing everything for the first time. And all of the pain points and all of the cycles that you are used to because you've been there for a million years are just like part of like, whenever, just like, I'm just thinking like when I'm going back to my apartment, I take a left turn kind of funky because there's always a pothole. They filled it recently, but I still take that weird turn because I'm just used to it. So it feels kind of like that. And Lewis Hamilton is there saying like, no, you can cut the turn a little tighter and make up some time.
Yeah.
Because they filled the pothole. Like this is this, we can do this differently. I'm seeing this for the first time. I don't have muscle memory a different way.
Yeah.
So I think it's so interesting to see, like you said, like how that's going to go, how much it's going to go, how, like, what the scale of that, basically, I guess, Lewis Hamilton effect is going to be at Ferrari.
Yeah. And I think, Fred's, this is only his, second year in Ferrari as well. So he also would have been through this change curve, not to bring corporate terminology into the pod, but he would have gone through the change curve already. I think a lot of Ferrari probably would have experienced that with him. And I know that he made a lot of team changes and swaps and things like that. So I wonder if the team now is a bit more receptive to change than it was when Fred came in.
Yes, I think that's a really good point of just like having that threshold for essentially discomfort, because change is not comfortable. Human beings don't like change. I think that's fascinating. And before we go down a corporate rabbit hole, I do want to talk about the strategy as well, because ouch. And also the fact that Mattia Binotto got it right.
Yeah.
I'm salty about it.
Sitting ahead of Ferrari.
I'm upset.
I just know that he is like rubbing his hands together like a fly. Yes, it's all going
what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm like not coping with that well. I'm just like not thinking about it. It's just like in a blind spot.
Happy for the Sauber drivers. Happy for Steak drivers. Nico,
Mattia Binotto.
Mattia, get out of here. No one's happy.
Can I do a thumbs down emoji on my phone? It doesn't work. Oh, that's exactly how I feel about it.
That was
exactly
good.
How I feel.
Wow, we found some new effects today. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm learning.
Yeah.
So, I mean, classic Ferrari strategy, aka classic awful strategy. I was devastated.
Why were they on slicks in the rain?
And like, I understand that they were hopeful for like a second, but honestly, I'm so sorry. If everyone else is staying on inters, maybe stay on inters.
I'm sorry, but this is the exact same situation, but opposite conditions. No? When Charles was sitting in the pit lane or sitting on the grid with inters and everyone else is on slicks. What do you mean? They've done it again.
You don't need to be clever. Sometimes, if all of your friends are jumping off a bridge, you too should jump off the bridge.
Yeah, sometimes you should actually be a sheep.
Yes. Yeah, and this was one of those times, and whatever. Anyway, and I'm still like Charles Leclerc, WDC
Yeah.
2025, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I do fear that that is edging closer to delusion with each
Oh,
passing day.
I know exactly how you feel. Hey, if Lando can get as close to the WDC last year, that late in the season,
Yeah, real,
you know,
real.
there's hopeful. So
Yeah.
we'll remain delusional. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I can't talk about Ferrari strategy anymore. Yeah. So, okay, I have a note here that I did write down thinking of Liv. That Pierre's defense, I can't remember who he was defending against, but it was an inevitable pass, and
Mm.
he was doing a really good job of it. He was just like fending them
Mm.
off for like longer than I was expecting.
I cannot think of who it was, but it
I
was
can't remember. I
probably
wish I had written it down.
was it perhaps Oscar?
It might have been. Yes, you know what? After let's
Because
talk about
it
that.
would have been one of the top drivers that's going
Yeah.
through the grid. The
Yeah,
only one I can
so
think of is Oscar. So yay, let's talk about it.
let's talk about
Cry.
McLaren. Yeah. I'm all right. Okay, I want to say something. And I think I'm gonna have to eat some more of my words from last season.
Oh, I know what
Um,
you're gonna say.
yes, I've written it in the notes. I don't. I think I'm only vice president of the Lando Hater Club now, you guys. I think
I
I've
can't
been
believe it's
demoted to
still
vice
there.
president. I'm still in it, but like I could be coaxed out.
Yeah.
Like, and here's the thing: this is what happened to me with Max. I was president of the Max Hater Club for a bit.
Yeah.
I saw him push Esteban Ocon, and I was like, "You don't push people in my garage." And then I like found out the kind of person that he was, and I was like, "No, this makes
Yeah.
sense. That's kind of who he is." Not to excuse. There's no excuse for violence. You are
Yeah.
hopped up on adrenaline. He's just
Yeah.
gotten weighed. He's just gotten out of his car. He's pissed.
Yeah. 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 I
Like,
mean, I have said consistently throughout
yes,
last season that I was a Lando lover. I did love him. He was Pookie. I have his mini helmet, you know.
yeah,
I've got my Lego McLaren on the wall that I bought before Oscar even joined the team. I actually did buy that for the
yeah.
day, but
That's the blue and papaya one.
yeah, yeah. I did actually buy that for Danny Rick, but it's okay. Lando, I did also love at the time, but I did say that I just wasn't vibing with Lando's ego, but I still liked him as a person and a driver.
Yes. Well, and that's
But
what I think changed a little bit. I
yeah,
don't know who he saw, what therapist he's been seeing, but they, I think, have done really good things for him. And I
yeah,
think, this wasn't an easy win. Yes, it was P1 to P1. And we'll talk about, like, I have an opinion about, like, P1 to P1 and that earning someone driver of the day.
mm,
I do think it was a hard one to keep.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
he had Max in his rear view close
yeah,
couple
the
times
whole
because of the
time.
safety cars. That's
Yeah,
such an easy opportunity to overtake. And yes, maybe the Red Bull has not been developed as well as the McLaren is. So like, let's give the laurels to the McLaren engineers and everybody
mm,
involved in the car. But also like that wasn't an easy one to win. And he managed to keep it on the road for the most part. There was a gravel
yeah,
trap moment. And then so that whole piece, like, yes, okay, I will give him that. I will. And then
yeah,
in post-race interviews, he actually kind of like wasn't like weirdly self-deprecating about it. He was like,
yeah,
no, like it was like good.
yeah,
He had kind of a Max response to it of like,
yeah,
I did own that. It is mine, and that's
mm,
okay. It wasn't like
mm,
I have to down myself because of X, Y. Like it felt, I don't
yeah.
know. And maybe I just because I had a break from him. We had a break from each other, and
Absence
I
makes
think I'm
the
just
heart
vice
grow fonder.
president now. I think that's all.
Yeah. I have been watching him. I mean, even this morning when I watched the Chinese Grand Prix warm up
Yeah.
with Laura and stuff, they went back and forth to the interview with Lando in the the Sakir, like interview room, where they're sitting on the couch, that one,
Yes.
and where he's talking about the car and after testing and stuff like that. And you can even tell just the way that he responds is very different to last year. Like, and he did say as well, I think it was in not in a public interview, but he did say as well at one point that he has decided to like stop complaining so much about the car when it's not working how he wants and just adapt his driving to still get the most out of it. So I think that
That's
he's
his
like,
job.
I know, but the fact that this is his 7th season and only now is
Yeah.
he kind of coming to terms with this, I'm like, well, actually, I think he's 25 now. So
Frontal
perhaps
lobe.
his frontal lobe has actually developed.
Wow, maybe that's why I didn't like him.
Perhaps.
Maybe I just needed to wait for his frontal lobe to finish
Because
developing.
Max was a little bit up until a couple years ago, and he's early.
Well, so that's the thing. I
Like,
always know how old Max and Charles Leclerc are ever going to be because we are all the same age.
yeah, there you go.
So
Well, I know how old Lando is because we're the same age.
exactly. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, like when I became like a real adult, when I hit 25, is like
Yeah.
when you see in like DTS and everything when Max
Yeah.
stops being like an annoying younger brother.
Maybe that is what it is.
God.
Okay, maybe.
Hey, Lando, frontal lobe check.
Hello.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
But
Well, I
yeah,
guess
so that takes us into the other half of McLaren. Devastating. Let's all shed a tear. That I was actually, because the thing was, I wanted Oscar to win. I want Oscar. See, this is why I'm still vice president. I want Oscar to beat Lando. But Oscar is also like my third favorite driver. I feel like it goes Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri.
Interesting. Mine is changing. I genuinely think mine's gone Oscar Charles.
Okay, that makes. I mean, I get it though. I feel like we've been seeing that happen over the pod.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could like go back and like tally the number of times we say different drivers' names and like watch it shift. But yeah, so I was devastated. It was such a bummer. But did you see his interview where he explained how he kind of figured out how to get out of the grass?
Yes.
He was driving tractors.
On Jeremy Clarkson's farm,
Mm-hmm.
he taught him how to reverse a tractor. And I think it was wet when he was doing that.
And they got him out.
Sorry, but the fact that he reversed an F1 car, not even McLaren, but an F1 car from the grass wearing slicks. It's not even like he was on inters. He was on slicks. How the fuck did he do that? Sorry for swearing, but Oscar.
And I think part of it was straight up, like, seeing the videos, the heart that the crowd had might as well have lifted him and placed him on the recovery road.
Well, the timing screen showed him as out. He showed him as DNF, and then the camera panned away from him, because I think the camera showed him trying to get out of it.
Forget about him.
They were like, no, he's done, he's out, whatever. And then the camera panned away, and then all of a sudden, Oscar's name is back white, and they pan back, and he's like reversing out. And oh my god, my heart. And then bless him, getting in the points, going up. I mean, I know it wasn't a full grid, but he was a lap down. He was like a lap behind. The safety car did help that because Ollie was also a lap down. They were both able to unlap. But he went through, I think, 5 drivers, including did an insane overtake on Lewis. I don't know if you guys have seen the onboard of that, but that was risky even in the drive.
No, it was good. It was huge.
I could
feel
so cool. Anger through the screen because that was a ballsy move.
The determination and grit, honestly, because it would be so easy. And honestly, we've seen other drivers want to retire for less. Well, like, look, no offense, Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes last season being like, it's just time to retire the car. Let's save the engine. Let's save the tires.
Well, I mean, we
Lewis.
Lando last year after his like little tiff with Max.
He could have finished. He could have finished. That's why he didn't win the Drivers' Championship, in my opinion, is because he chose to retire the car that race when Max continued. And Max only got like 5th that race. It's burned into my brain because I know for a fact he got 5th. It's not a guess. I just know that. But I think if Lando had finished even in any of the points, it would have been easier to overtake Max in the championship. Yeah. Because it's those things that make the difference.
It's stuff like that makes me so confident that Oscar will be a World Drivers' Champion before Lando. However, McLaren, if you keep pulling this shit about...
I wanted to talk about that.
I understand. Look, All right, balloons. Thanks. What's the word that I'm trying to? Rationally, I understand it. All right, there was
Well, and because
potential
the
for
thing that
rain.
I heard about it was that they were in a pack of people getting lapped, and that's why
Yeah,
they were told to hold
right.
position, which changes it. Because in the moment, I was like, "Are you kidding?" The
Yeah,
second he gets close to Lando, they're like, "Actually, hold position.
yeah,
Actually, hold position."
yeah,
And then the second he's like, "Oh, outside of DRS," they're like, yeah, you guys can race, I guess."
yeah, yeah. Watching it live, that I was almost yelling.
I was
However,
upset.
watching it back, I'm like, okay, if we look at it rationally, like there was potential rain was going to fall in like the next 2 minutes. They weren't too
Passing in those
sure.
conditions was not good in
Yeah,
general,
I
let
think they,
alone among a bunch of the people getting lapped.
yeah.
Like, I get it. I
Plus,
don't
like,
like it.
regardless of the weather conditions, whether it did rain or not, they would have had to pit soon anyway because I think they would have had to change their tires. They would have been out of their tire window. So I think
Mhm.
that was also coming into it where it's like, okay, we have to pit soon anyway. So like, what's the point in fight? Like, I think there was a lot more things that came into it post race that people realized, but live,
Yeah.
that made me really sad.
My brain gets it. My heart does not.
That's a perfect analogy. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, McLaren, let's just let them. Because that's the thing. It's a wet weather race
Yeah,
on a track that is purpose built to be a track, but not necessarily fully FIA tailored.
yeah.
And I think that while this is such an interesting place to start with
Mm,
like the drivers and constructors championship standings that we have now of
yeah.
like Lance Stroll is sixth in the championship. That's for all you Lance haters. Um, like we can't, like, as much as we can take away from this, we also can't, because there's so many
Yeah.
extenuating circumstances for this race.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, that being
So,
said, driver of the day, to go back to while we're still on McLaren, driver of the day,
mhm.
share your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I touched on it. I don't think you should get driver of the day if you go P1 to P1. I don't think that's anything. I think, and because
No.
the thing is, Lando got driver of the day.
Yeah.
No, it should have been Kimi Antonelli. It should have
It
been Kimi Antonelli.
it should have been Kimi or Oscar. But
Or, yes, obviously.
my vote is Kimi. I actually
Yeah, I
didn't vote
agree.
for driver of the day because I was too depressed after Oscar. But it should have been Kimi. I'm sorry, but he made it up like 10 places. He was the highest scoring rookie. All
He
of
survived
Q1.
that race.
Yeah. He was one position behind George. Like, that is crazy. This is George's like 7th season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that a driver should get P1 to P1, should get driver of the day. Plus, we've seen it. Lando isn't the only one that's done P1 to P1. Charles did it in Monaco last year. Actually,
Yeah,
I think
which, like, that I feel a little
that's
different
different.
about, because there was a lot. Okay, actually, I'm gonna change my mind about what I just said.
Actually, wait, that was a bad analogy. That
Well,
was a bad
I
example.
do think that if there is like Oscar getting driver of the day for Australia, like I would have gotten that. Or
Yeah.
yes, going. I think Monaco is also interesting too, because it's not an easy track to pass on, especially with how wide the cars have become. So it's kind of just like a procession. All the drivers talk about how Monaco is just kind of a procession.
Yeah.
There's no place to like throw it up the inside or whatever,
Yeah. But I mean,
But I
Max never
think,
gets driver of the day for P1 to P1.
yeah.
Like,
And I think part of it has to do with like the fandom behind a driver, which is so interesting. But I know I just said you shouldn't get driver of the day for P1 to P1. I'm glad Charles got it for a special events. Like in any normal
yeah.
race, sure. But I
Yeah,
think
yeah. In
otherwise, you already win. You get
home
to
races, I
win.
think that's just like an extra like good job, So I can
Yeah.
understand it if you win your home race. It's like, woo, you
Yeah.
won your home race, like slay. That's
Yes.
great.
Yes.
But yeah, I think when it comes down to a race like this, where it's not like Lando did anything super special in terms of like comparing him to drivers behind him. He was
Mhm.
he was in clean air the whole time, clean air in the rain.
Right.
But like, yeah, that was a bit disappointing. But there are so many Lando fans in Melbourne.
Really?
So when I went to the AusGP in 2023, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much walking around the city and everything, that was Oscar's like first year, so it wasn't very heavy
Yeah.
McLaren anything because I think that was like the third race of his third race.
Yeah.
There was a lot of Danny Rick and there was a lot of Ferrari merch
Ugh.
everywhere.
R.I.P.
Um,
Dan Ricardo.
we miss you.
Yeah.
But this year, every second, I reckon 4 out of 5 people were wearing McLaren and not just Oscar. Like a lot of it was Lando. And
That's
like
crazy.
Lando inspired merch where it was like the Culture Kings range or the
Yeah.
Abercrombie range or Levi's. Like a lot of it was Lando. There were so many Lando fans in Melbourne. I was like, whoa, where did
That's
you all come
crazy.
from? So yeah, I think that's interesting as well because I
Yeah.
obviously sometimes you just vote for your favorite driver regardless of their performance.
Sometimes
Um,
sometimes I just be voting for Charlotte Leclerc.
yeah. So yeah, I can understand it to an extent. However, it wouldn't be my vote.
No,
I,
we would have voted Kimi. Kimi, you're our driver of the day.
yeah,
Okay, let's hit really quick the driver and team standings for WDC and WCC really quick. And then
yeah,
we can get into our predictions
yeah.
and that'll be that for today. So I've got the driver standings pulled up. No one is surprised Lando Norris is top. I'm just going to go through the top 10. And it's
Mm,
kind of just our table, like the winning table. But like of note, Kimi is in fourth. Alex Albon is in fifth. Lance Stroll is in sixth. Nico Hulkenberg is in seventh. Charles Leclerc is in eighth. Oscar Piastri is in ninth. Lewis Hamilton in 10th. And then literally there's only 14 people in the drivers' championship standings because everybody else DNF.
0. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So kind of a
crazy.
wacky WDC standing right now. And then the teams is worse. So, okay, obviously McLaren, then Mercedes, then Red Bull, then Williams, then Aston Martin, then Kick, then Ferrari, ouch. Then
Oof.
Alpine, then VCarb, then Haas. Which, sorry, Haas, really bad weekend. Tough
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah.
I also thought Esteban Ocon was a little faster than that, though. A little bit.
I kind of expected a bit more from Esteban, especially considering his performance in Monaco when it was raining that one year where I think he got
And
P3.
Brazil just last season,
Yeah,
too. He managed
yeah.
to podium in the
But
Alpine.
I mean, the house, it's not best. So
We'll
maybe
see
there's
how
some
it
teething
performs.
issues there.
We'll see how it performs in the dry. I
Yeah.
want them to be good. Like, my heart wants them to be good. But then
Mm,
again, it's like my brain is like, I don't know. I would hedge
yeah.
that bet.
Yeah. Um,
So,
devastating current standings. However, China
race one. One race.
China today.
There's
China
so many.
starts today. It's also sprint weekend, so an extra opportunity to grab some more points.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great segue to go into our predictions for the weekend for both the sprint and the race. Let's start with our sprint predictions. For myself, for the sprint, I have Oscar P1, Max P2, and Charles P3. Because I think that's what I want. That's just what I want. No thoughts, only vibes.
Okay, not to go out of order. That's my race prediction.
Oh,
That is what I want for the race. I want an Oscar win.
same.
But my sprint has Lando finishing first because I think he'll have a little bit of a vendetta because if I remember correctly, last season, this was the first time that he became like, oh, Lando fumbles the start. Like Lando is not,
Mm-hmm.
which I think he has improved.
Yeah, I think so because I think, well, he did it once and then he was kind of like, yeah, I did it. And now he's like, doesn't have that pressure of being like, oh,
Yes.
Lando bottles the start.
Yeah.
Like, he's past it. He's like, okay, I can do
That
it.
said, I do think that's the thing. The start, as I've been learning, the start has two components to it. It's the actual kick off the line and then the acceleration component. Max is good at everything. You put
Max
something in
is,
front of Max, he's going to be good at it. It's annoying. I do love him for it a little bit. It's annoying.
it's
But
crazy.
I think Lando has improved the actual kick off the start. I think it's the acceleration component because the McLaren is fast, but the Red Bull was catching up to him in the start
Yeah.
of Australia. So I don't know. But my sprint is Lando, Oscar, Max. McLaren 1-2. Makes sense. They're fast. It's
Yeah.
China.
Yeah.
Twisty turny. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Liv's prediction for the sprint is Oscar, George, Charles, which makes sense for her. They're kind of a new top three.
Yeah.
Race predictions for myself. I have Oscar, Max, and then Lando. I want it to be known that I've actually spelled Oscar with a H instead of an R as
It
well.
is phonetically spelled.
It is. But yeah, that's my prediction because again, the McLarens are fast. However, we know how. I mean, this isn't. We haven't. Wait, what am I trying to say? We've only done one race with this current grid, most of the grid at China. So it's still a very new circuit for a lot of the drivers.
And the rookies. They've maybe only done it in the sim.
But I think even if they have raced it in F2, which I don't think they have, but even if they have, the difference in G-force alone in turn 1 is going to be crazy because it's almost like a full 360.
And that turn is so fascinating to me. I think it's such a cool piece of the track. But like, I think of that one clip that went viral last season of Charles Leclerc, like forgetting to turn off the radio and just like he's panting hard. He's working to get that car through as quick as he possibly. Like that's exhausting. I'm tired listening to it.
Insane. But I think that skill is going to come in really handy here. And I think McLaren's obviously have the speed, but I still think that Max has the skill above all of them. And I think that he's gonna be on that podium.
Yeah. Well, and Liv agrees with you. Did you do her race?
No.
Yeah, her race predictions have Max finishing P1, Oscar finishing P2, and George finishing P3. So, I mean, I'm still holding out. I still I don't know. I want Max to give everybody a run for their money. I believe in, like I said, the Lewis effect earlier. I believe in the Max effect at Red Bull. I do think, isn't that a game? No, Mass Effect. That's a video game. Max Effect is Formula 1. I think there's a thing, there's a component at Red Bull where I think Max is just that good.
Yeah.
That he's making it work. But I think we're seeing a little bit of maybe its true performance in Checo's second half of last season and Liam's performance now. Because I think Liam is a very decent driver. He did fairly consistent results of VCARB last season. I think it's a fascinating decision to put him in the other.
Right into the Red Bull? Yeah.
But again, who knows? Maybe they'll have a small threshold for him and swap him with Yuki.
Yeah.
That would be so interesting to see. I would be fascinated to see how... I mean, sure, I'd be fascinated to see how Isaac does in it, but I think he needs to mature a bit at VCARB, just in terms of driving skill.
Yeah. No, I would really like to see Yuki in the Red Bull at some point. Just to see.
Yeah, but Helmut doesn't like him, so...
No, well, no one likes Helmut, so...
You tell him. I think that's a perfect note to end on. So, I guess we'll see you all for the China Grand Prix race recap next weekend. Doubleheader. We're back in it, baby. 2025. Let me get the lasers.
Straight in.
You think I
Let's
can
get the lasers going?
Watch it not work. Okay, it's not working. That's fine.
You got to get the
There we go. Double effect, 2 different ones. You better watch this. If you listen to the whole podcast and only watch the endings, I don't care. You just, whenever we mention an effect, just peek.
Yeah.
For me.
You can watch videos on Spotify now, so it's not like you have to go to a different app. So,
so convenient just for you.
Yeah. Anyway, see you next time.
Bye!